Good evening, guys. I hope you're all well, and welcome back to the Amateur Footballer channel, and welcome back to the Starting 11. Now, today, as you can see, we're not our normal three. We have got our special guest, Fabrice, on today, back to his frozen state. Maybe not. So we are joined by myself, Joe, Michelle, and Fabrice. Joe, I'm going to come to you first. How are you doing, fella?
Well, I've laughed. I haven't broke down in tears, which is good. I'm all right. We'll get into it.
I'm all right, actually, to be fair. I'm not going to lie. It didn't really affect me as much as it has in the past, but I guess that's life, isn't it? Another year older.
That's exactly it. Fabrice, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Now, before we start,
hold on, Billy. How are you?
I'm all good, mate. Thank you. I'm all good. I'm in a relatively good state. The trains are a bit of a mess at the minute, so been a bit of a pain to get around, but it's fine. We move. But yeah, before we get onto the negatives of what we thought about the game, France 2, England 1, I want to get onto the positives. Now, that's probably one of the best team displays that I've seen from England from current years. I don't know if you lot agree, but for me personally, I feel that, especially against a strong France squad, that although last week we were quite, what's the word? We criticised the France team quite a lot, and we were saying that overall we should be looking positive for this game. I was surprised with how well we actually did. Joe, I'm going to come to you. What were your thoughts on the game overall?
Good game. If I always think sometimes you need to pretend you haven't seen the goals and what do you think of the game, if that even makes any sense.
Yeah.
I thought we played really well. I thought we showed the character that was needed to win a game of that magnitude, and it's the first big game that I think Gareth has got right in terms of his plan on how to set out the team. Not necessarily personnel. I think that can always change. You can possibly look at where he might have differed the odd person, but in terms of setting up game plan, in my opinion, it was the first game that he got right, or at least got with a positive spin and the right intent. But we are still England, unfortunately, and it's. I haven't taken it as tough this time. I think this time it's different. Like the previous times that we've gone out, it's hit me like, oh, it's England again. We could have done it, should have, could have, would have. This one feels different in a sense of I'm optimistic because of how well we played, but I'm just going to say it now. Currently in the world, I think we've got the best squad in the world. And that's not an optimistic thing from me. That's I don't think this was a nearly miss. I think this was a miss. I think the others were nearly misses.
Michelle, what were your thoughts on the game?
Firstly, I got the starting lineup right, is all I'm going to say. So, just props to me again. I just thought, do you know what? I get what you mean in terms of it was a good England performance. I don't think it was a great individual. I don't think anyone actually reached their peak in that game. Even Saka, he was the best player on the pitch. But, I still don't think anyone reached their epitome, if that makes sense. Because I think if everyone hit their stride, I think it would have been a different game. As we said, the England squad is a lot better than the French team. It's a lot better than a lot of the squads out there. Still a good game. I do think, we have to give Kyle Walker props that he did his job right. Actually, Mbappe was near enough not really there. I kind of always knew Giroud was going to do something. It was kind of written. It felt like that kind of game. But overall, I think the reason why no one feels as bad is because England did well, actually. I actually think Gareth Southgate is to kind of blame for what went wrong at the end, but I guess we'll get into that later.
Fabrice, what did you think of the game?
I think Joe and Michelle have really summed up exactly what I was going to say, really.
Done. I'm joking.
Yeah. No,
everyone.
it was, I do agree with Joe. I think England have the best squad in the world, if used correctly. We're looking at very fine find more like very minute details and ifs, buts, and maybes. We were looking at a French team that we all knew. If you kept Mbappe quiet, then you stood a chance. But again, when you kind of come into those elite minutes or seconds, you are like looking at management and you're looking at some players to actually step up. And unfortunately, it wasn't England's day. But yeah, overall, it's progression.
Can I just say to Brees, you look on a similar level to me in terms of sadness. I don't know if that's because it's been a busy day at work or we are feeling the same. No, I don't know. I feel like you're more on my level. Am I correct? Or
yeah, 100%. Do not get me wrong. I'm like gutted, but it's the first time where I'm thinking, well, you know what? I think the squad can board the plane
without feeling too much. Yeah, I'll get you.
Yeah, satisfied is the kind of probably wrong word, but at least they've literally shown to or like proven to a lot of the other nations that they can now compete.
Now, I want to quickly go back to Tabriz on who he believes is the man of the match from that game. You can pass if someone else has got their answer ready.
Yeah, you know what? Come back to me later. Let me have a think.
Michelle?
I already said it was Saka. I think he was the most dangerous player on the pitch. And they were targeting him, actually. And that was, we'll come on to the ref later on, but
they were allowed to.
But I think, I just think Saka was dangerous. We talked about it last week in terms of every time he gets the ball, it was exciting. And actually, the flip side for France, they were just scared, right? And I think he was trying to make things happen. So for me, and I think if he hadn't gone off, I think he was injured. That's why Gareth took him off. If he wasn't injured and Gareth took him off, then I'll come for Gareth again. But I think if he was on, potentially there could have been another decent chance in there in those remaining kind of 14 minutes that was left of the game.
Yeah, still a bit, wasn't it, with the added time?
Yeah, so I definitely think Saka was the danger man, 100%.
How long was it? It was +8 at the end, wasn't it?
It was +8, and I think he went off, I want to
99 and a bit, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
We had a free kick on the edge, didn't we, at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he went because he went off when he came on with Sterling, and Sterling came on for him, didn't he?
Yeah.
He came off quite early, or in terms of the subs anyway. But he was 100% my man of the match.
Joe, who do you think who would you be giving man of the match to?
Yeah, I'd give Saka man of the match for all the reasons Shell just said. I also thought Declan Rice had a really, really good game. I think for me, looked like he fitted in that sort of level of football, which is pleasing for all the teams that are having a look at him, I think. But yeah, Saka was man of the match, without a doubt. If anything, my only criticism is they didn't give the ball to Saka more, because the French back line were so scared, actually. So scared of them.
Mm. And Tabriz, coming back to you after hearing the other two on what they thought and their man of the matches.
I thought Saka was definitely England's danger man. Declan Rice as well, literally shown that he can now make that step up from. And again, no disrespect to any West Ham fans out there, but I think he can definitely make that jump to the elite level. Oh gosh, who else? Of course, a special shout out has to go to Walker. He played really well. I think there was only one time, I think it was in the second half where where Mbappe beat him, but Mbappe still had to get the crossing. Apart from that, he was really, really quiet. It was a it was a really, really good England performance. But yeah, I thought Saka showed exactly the qualities why Liverpool.
Oh, well, I knew you were going to say it. I knew it was coming. There was generally no need. There was no. I was like, how is he going to make this segue in? He's saying, leave him alone.
I think based on his performance, you won't be able to afford him, to be honest.
Oh, guys, if we make Champions League football, he's staying. It's fine.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Michelle on that one. I think with Saka and Arsenal, especially their star boy, and everyone loves him, it's going to be very hard for him to leave. But I can understand he's just getting better every year. I say that every game. Saka is getting better every game, and we're seeing, especially from such a youngster, the quality that he possesses already. You can see him potentially getting a move to a club that's already in Champions League. But if Arsenal manage to stay in the competition and stay at a higher level than what they were previously, then you could understand Saka staying put and saying, no, I want to win stuff with my club.
I don't think he'll move unless it's Real Madrid or something. He will not move to another Premier League club because I think you have the added benefit of Saka. I actually think, I could be wrong, I don't know him personally, but I've said this a few times, I think, Shell. I think he's quite a natural loyal, and he's got his head on his shoulders, and he just seems like a nice guy. Yes, money talks, but I think actually all the time he's developing and Arsenal going forward, he'll stay. The only thing where I can think maybe something could happen is if Madrid come in with a massive offer, which sounds ludicrous, but this lad, the consistency he's producing at 21 years of age is as good as I've seen from anyone.
Yeah. Who's your player of the match, Billy?
I'd have to say Saka as well. It's a full house. I think, in fairness, obviously a shout out to Rice as well. But overall, Saka, I think you all hit the points pretty well on why he should be. He was definitely one of our most dangerous threats going forward. But yeah, all four of us agree on Saka being that man of the match for the game.
I should have been here now going, race, baby. I'm not.
Would there be a France player for the shouts of man of the match?
No.
We move on from
Let's give it to Lloris, innit? He did well.
Yeah, Lloris.
Let's give Lloris some props because do you know what? People were coming for him, and they were just like
Upper Campo or whatever his name is. He was up Saka's bum because he could not defend him. I don't think there's. Do you know what? It's a good question because I'm being honest. I don't know one of them players that had a particularly good game. I thought Griezmann was clever with his positioning.
Griezmann's not a bad shout.
But Griezmann was probably their best player in terms of the positions he took up. But
overall, Saka is just that clear.
Not even Saka. I thought, if I'm being honest, the best players on the pitch were Saka, Rice, Lloris, and Walker. If I'm honest.
Now, moving on from the man of the match, Michelle, are you going to say something?
I was going to say, right, I need to give to Reece, some kind of joy in his life. So I will say, for me, Hendo has been England's player of the tournament. I'm going to say that hard.
Before we carry on, I was about to get on to who we thought was England's player of the tournament.
Sorry.
So, Michelle, who's your England player of the tournament?
It's as if I knew. No, it has to be Hendo. I think just his, and actually I was actually having to debate with someone else actually. Would you have him as captain versus over Kane is a question.
Oh
yes. So yes, I would have him.
It's a whole resounding yes. Okay.
But I fear that he's not going to be at this level for much longer, but yes.
Yeah, I think, I fully agree. To Reece, what do you think? You were quite quiet. You're not supporting your boy.
No, what I mean, again, exactly what Joe said. I think this is probably his last tournament, maybe.
Yeah, I think he should have been. I think he should have been captain, especially because of what happened. I don't know.
I actually think he could go on the coaching staff. I know it's likely Liverpool will offer to keep his services in a managing capacity, but I actually think he would suit on the management team of England.
Just quickly, Joe, before we carry on with this, Robert has come in with a question. Do you think would have. I presume he's talking about the France game. That it would have been a different game with Europe's top player playing. Now, I'm not sure who that is.
Benzema, I'm guessing.
No. I think it's Madison.
Yeah,
Robert,
no.
Robert, another comment on who that European player or top player is, and then we'll get back to that.
I think he'd probably say Benzema, but if he means Benzema, then no, I don't think it'd have been any different.
Do you know?
But
no,
we'll get onto that once Robert has put in who his player is that he believes is the top player in Europe. But anyway, back to England's player of the tournament. Yeah, sorry, it was Henderson we were discussing about the leadership, and you said potential.
I think the leadership he showed, and I think actually everyone kind of saw it, like in terms of like like how vocal he was, and like even Bellingham having to come and defend. I mean, he didn't need him to defend him, but the fact that Bellingham felt the need to actually just remind people that this guy's doing more than we think he is, and he doesn't get enough respect. I think he just showed that leadership quality, and actually did it.
He doesn't get enough respect from certain people. I think anyone that knows football respects.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I think it could be just people that hate Liverpool as well. But I think even stuff like when the USA game, it's just like actually we need to like press and move quicker. He was actively doing it, and he's like, as we said, I mean, I aged him last
without the thought of kicking off here, because this is going to start something. Sorry, Shell. It's very similar to Billy's hate for Kane, no matter what he does. It's very similar because some people just don't like Henderson because technically he isn't, ability-wise, he is not up there. But in attitude, application, all of the other things which makes model professionals, which, you know, it's the same traits which has taken Ronaldo from being a player here to here. He has an abundance. So I think people who understand football appreciate that just as much as maybe the technical ability. Obviously, he's a good player. He's won a lot of things. I'm not saying he's got no ability. He clearly has. But I think some people just look at maybe his ordinary sort of style and they just never have the plaudits. And
just to clarify to the audience quick, I don't hate Henderson. I do hate Kane, but I don't hate Henderson. Carry on with your point, Joe.
It's very similar. Some people just don't like him for whatever reasons. You know, the reasons for me are not valid.
So, Joe, who would be your England player of the tournament then? Would it be Henderson as well, or?
No, for me, I would actually go Saka. Would be my player of the tournament because of the threat he posed, the 3 goals he got, and on the back of the outcome of the Euros. I think it just shows the character of the man. I think he's absolutely outstanding, and he's my favourite player in the world at the moment. I just love hard-working players that, as we've spoken about before, can give you that excitement when you're watching the game. You know, the only thing that beats playing it is watching it, and then players that give you that feeling. But for me, I've also got a big shout for Maguire. I know that's going to take people back a little bit, but I think to show the performance levels that he has done, given the time that he's had, I think he did. You've got to hold your hand up. I didn't think Gareth should have chose him. I still don't think it, but actually, based on his performance, I think Gareth made the right decision. I think he was very, very good at centre half, considering.
But do we all agree that we know what Maguire does for England? Like, I think everyone was under the general consensus for Man U, of course, is a bit of a problem, but for England, he's always been quite solid. I think that's always been the general consensus about Maguire.
Yeah, but it's the reason being is, again, I don't want to start slamming people, but for knowledge, because we all have different knowledges of the game. You know, I'm not saying I know everything about football. I certainly don't. I listen to all people's views and opinions, but Maguire thrives in an England side. I mean, thrives is a bit intense, but he does well on an England side because he's either playing in a 3, where he's got the protection of essentially a back 5 if you're playing defensively. And then when he plays in a 4, England do not hold a high line. They do not go on the halfway line. When he's at Man United, they're holding line about 5 yards within inside their own half. He gets turned. He is not a player to get turned. He can't keep up. He's clumsy. He's not the best ability on the ball one touch, so he gets found out. But actually, when you put him in a defensive position, when he's on the edge of his box, heading stuff out, doing really nitty-gritty, dirty work, he's fantastic at that. And that's what what you're seeing is you either have Maguire in almost either a counter-attacking team or a team that starts attacks very deep, or you don't have him in. Maguire cannot play on the halfway line, and that's fundamentally why Gareth picked him, and that's also why he looks better in an England shirt.
No, that's fair.
So yours overall would be Saka, but
Saka with Maguire and Henderson as honourable mentions for me.
Okay. Before we move on to Tabrice and what he thought, we've got Napa's mum coming in saying that she's just going from work. Hi, Napa's mum. Hope you're all well. And she's also put a comment saying so many great players in the tournament, but I've had a soft spot for Phil Foden.
You've got him. He's really good.
He's good. I just feel like I just feel for him. I think, to be fair, he played better in this tournament than he did the Euros. I think he played in that game. He didn't actually play that well, if I'm being totally honest. I say that well. He didn't really do anything.
No,
really
he didn't have that sort of inverted role. He sort of seemed to stay out a little bit wide. I think it was part of the tactics. He didn't have as much freedom, did he?
But just before he was coming off, he actually did step it up a little bit, to be fair to him. But then I was just like, oh, damn it. If Foden, if I'll be totally honest, if Foden got into that second gear, I reckon he would have caused France all sorts of problems. But he just never made it quite over that.
I want to pick up on that point later. We've got something we're going to cover in terms of how, what England will look like in 4 years.
Okay.
I'll move on to that.
I've got a concern.
Ooh.
Remind me when we get there.
That's fine. We'll get there. Tabrice, apologies not getting to your point. We've got another comment from Robert saying that it was Benzema that we were saying.
It wasn't Maddison, Tabrice.
I thought it was Maddison.
But do you guys think it would have been a different game if Benzema was involved?
Well, yeah, it would have been a different game, but I don't think it would have been any more difficult. I think Giroud hasn't got the legs. He stays up there. Benzema would have posed more of a threat in terms of his movement. His ability is better than Giroud's. But I sometimes think, Giroud's goal was a deadly assassin. He was stuck there in the middle of three players and headed it in. Would Benzema have offered that? I don't think so, but he would have offered more of a threat in terms of movement, in terms of bringing it to that.
I think that's one thing with Benzema.
It'd have been a different game, but I don't think the outcome would have been much different, to be fair.
Tabrice, Michelle, have you got anything to add on to whether it would have been different with Benzema in the starting lineup for France?
I do. I think he just added another. He adds another dynamic, doesn't he? I think, as I said before last week, like Giroud, like people have played with him. They've played against him a number of times. You kind of know what he's about. But as you said, when he gets the opportunity, he does take it, and that is what he's brilliant at. That's why he was such a super sub for Arsenal, anyway. Yeah. But I do think with Benzema, I think it would have been a bit of more of a. I think the goal line probably would have been stretched a little bit more earlier, personally, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll never know. It might work in our favour. He might not.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Might not have scored. Yeah, I think it'd have been a different game, but it's a difficult question, really, isn't it? But I don't think ultimately it would have meant they blasted us away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't have been like an absolute annihilation because I think everyone was just so focused on Mbappe anyway. But yeah, you're right, Joe. I think it just would have been a different dynamic.
Now, Tabrice, finally, back to you. What would be who would be your England player of the tournament?
I would say Jude Bellingham. I think, let's be absolutely real here. If Calvin Phillips wasn't injured, we wouldn't be talking about Jude Bellingham. I don't think Jude Bellingham would have got into the.
No, I'm so glad Phillips got injured. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's honestly, let's be real here. Like, it would have been Rice, Phillips, and Mount, or Bellingham would have probably maybe got a few minutes, but he wouldn't have been as influential. And I think we've seen the. Possibly again, we're looking at maybe a decade of literally what potentially Jude Bellingham can actually be for club and country. And
what a guy!
And literally, I think he was the only player, one of the only players against France where you could see that there was no respect there. He was like, "Nah, you know what? I'm here, and I'm gonna, And actually, I'm going to run. I'm going to put my body on the line. he was like the only person that was actually questioning the referee's decisions every single time as well. Again, I can't believe he's 19. So yeah, I think Bellingham for me was a player of the tournament for England. But again, Saka, you're talking about Henderson that came in last minute, even Pickford as well. Like, against Senegal, like he made some crucial saves. Like, Pickford has kind of done nothing wrong. Like, none of the goals you could really say.
Francis first.
I agree with Joe.
Francis. I'm sorry, Francis' first goal. He saw it.
He saw it.
I watched an interview today. With Ben Foster. Ben Foster, who's very, very, I'd like to say, in a position where he wouldn't want to mug keepers off. And his podcasts are pretty good. And he said that he would expect any Premier League top keeper to make that save. Based on the pace it was hit at and the speed. The fact it goes through the legs. He said in them shots, sometimes keepers almost try to dive to save the ball. But when it's curling, you should always dive past the ball. And he gave quite a good breakdown. And actually, I thought if he's saying that, I know you shouldn't really take other people's, but when it went in, I sort of thought, it wasn't the hardest shot I've ever seen. I'm not saying he definitely should have saved it, but
when no disrespect to Ben Foster because of his career and wonderful. Ben, if you're watching, fella, you're saying any top keeper would save it. But ultimately, as a keeper, you know that once the ball goes through them legs, you cannot react until that ball has passed through his legs and you see it.
No, he said he sees the strike. The keeper sees the strike there. Going through the legs doesn't change anything. And I agree. Pickford was not unsighted. And if you ask Pickford honestly, and you said, Pickford, did that going through the legs in that position affect you? He would say no.
But do you think that
he would say no, would he?
The thing is, when you say that you see it before it goes through his legs, right? You cannot dive before it goes through his legs because you do not know if there becomes a deflection. Pickford has already made a dive towards the ball and it's bounced and deflected the other way, we'll blame Pickford for diving too early.
Yeah, no, I'm not blaming him. It's one of those. I think Pickford could have done better, but I'm not blaming him, if that's making any sense.
No, I agree. I'm going to have to back Joe on that one. And actually, when you say dive too early, we'll be like, well, actually, if it took a deflection, everyone's like, it took a deflection. You kind of, if it takes a deflection, everyone just takes it on the chin, right?
Yes.
But I think it's the fact that he shoots and he moves quite late.
It was a late dive, yeah.
It's a late dive. So for me, I was like, if he moved one step earlier, I'd have been fine with that. Even if I went in, I'd been fine with that. He just moves a bit too late. I think he just wasn't expecting it.
Wow.
And also, something tells me Pope and Ramsdale might have got to that, but we'll never know. It's just one of those.
Ramsdale definitely would have.
Save it.
I think you guys are disrespecting the strike. And again, it's the fact that no one can even talk about England's shape because Bellingham comes out to him like he literally tried to engage with him. And of course, with those type of strikes, a lot of the pundits say there was no one out there close to even shut him down.
Oh, he did. He went for his legs. He was close, wasn't he?
Like Bellingham was so close.
Yeah.
It was a pure strike. And of course, I know Billy will probably talk about the refereeing decision, but I mean, hey, like I can't really blame Pickford for that. He's done nothing wrong.
Oh, we're not blaming him. I'm just saying.
Yes, you are.
No. I just think.
No. I said I wouldn't blame him for it going in, but I do think he could have done better. Make sense of that as you will, but I know.
With you.
But you are blaming him then.
No, we're just saying.
I'm not. Because if you ultimately tell me, do you think it was the keeper's fault? My answer is no. But if you said to me, do you think that was savable and another keeper would have saved it? My answer is yes.
But
then which keeper would have saved it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that means it's Pickford's fault. If he can't save it,
it's not. There's certain players where you go, oh, someone would have scored that, but he wouldn't. It's not. It's on different skills and abilities. That's all. I don't think Pickford has done anything majorly wrong. I'm not blaming him for the goal. I just think it was savable.
I think that we should leave it on that.
Let's see a Master Blaster 205's comment.
England really needed pure pace centrally to really have that dodgy French defence on the back foot. And then he also comments saying centrally up front he means. I said this on last week's show. that
Yeah,
I would have
you
loved
do,
to see
Phil.
Rashford over Kane up front, because we've known Rashford now, especially this season, breaking that back line, showing the pace and getting forwards. And if France are setting up for a striker like Kane to come back, they're not ready for Rashford to move forward. So I somewhat agree with Master Blaster 205's comment in the sense that we do need that bit of pace up front. What's your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I hear it, but I don't know how you'd start Rashford over Kane. I mean, that's the only thing. Like, I don't think that was ever going to happen. So I was never going to really entertain it. Them on a pitch at the same time, which kind of happened towards the end. I mean, that was a bit too late anyway for anything to happen. But then Saka was kind of doing that job anyway in terms of like that pace. So I feel like Gareth got the tactics right there. I think actually, obviously, we had a better ref, then some of those calls would have been different. But I think Saka was doing that job. And I do think actually Saka doing that job and potentially Foden, if Foden was a bit, I don't know, I keep going back to Foden because I feel like he could have done that on the other side. I don't know. I just feel like Saka was doing that job anyway. So I don't think you needed Rashford, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
Good evening to Master Blaster 205 and Paula. Evening. Well, we got some regulars on, so say hello to all the other peeps that have popped in. They've come in obviously because they agree with my opinion, so I'm going to say hello.
I don't know about that one.
Anyone else thoughts on Rashford?
You know, I think you know, I mean, it's easier to kind of talk in hindsight now and then say, but you know, I think Rashford or Grealish. I would have loved to have seen Foden probably in the number 10 or even Maddison with Rice and Bellingham, you know, beside each other, because I think, you know, Bellingham can do everything. And, you know, so on the left could have been Grealish, Rashford, or even Foden, and bring Maddison in as well. And hey, you know, we are talking ifs, buts, and maybes. But I think Rashford can definitely now, hopefully, kind of
Kick on.
like kickstart his United career now.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is kind of giving him the confidence, and hopefully Ten Hag has seen exactly what he can do and playing him in the right position. How old's Rashford? 25?
25.
Older, I think.
No, 25.
So yeah, so you know he's got another World Cup in him. So yeah, no, again, like the whole England squad, bar the players that didn't play, I thought did pretty well.
I'd think for my player of the tournament, I'd have to agree with Tabriz on Bellingham. I think Bellingham, so many times I've heard throughout this tournament, I've heard Bellingham's name be called quite a lot on how he was able to carry the ball forward. He progressed forward the way he was wide, or the goals he was scoring in midfield as well. Yeah, I think for me it was Bellingham. I don't need to shout out because you lot have said it enough with Henderson. The fact he came on, especially Michelle, you highlighted it against who was it? USA. When no one else looked like they wanted it, no one else looked up for it. Henderson came on and wanted the ball the entire time. He wanted England to score. He wanted us to win. So, yeah, shout out to Henderson as well. Paul has put a comment, which we will get onto now as well. France's best player was the ref. Now, that is a great comment because we will be moving on to now the referee decisions throughout that game. Now, I'm not a salty England fan that's like, oh, well, we lost because of the ref. Ultimately, we didn't take our chances anyway. But the ref definitely didn't help with the amount of opportunities that France got given when there was fouls that weren't being called and poor decisions being made. I want to highlight the first issue that I want to talk about, which is the pushing it back from Theo Hernandez, I believe, on Harry Kane. I want to touch on that first. Do you think it's a penalty? And do you think it's a yellow card or potentially a red? For me, I think it is a penalty and I think it's a red card. He's the last man. He's through on Garth. He touched it down. Theo Hernandez comes out of nowhere and completely blasts him up the backside. So, yeah, for me, it's a penalty, and I think it's a red card. What do you lot think on the decision?
I can't sum up one decision. I just have to get out what's in my head. I'm sorry, guys. I am sick to death of the bias against England. It's not just at competitions. And I'm not one of these people that blast referee, because refs can have bad games. And quite often everyone moans about the ref, right? Okay, VAR was sent in to clean it up. It hasn't cleaned it up. It's made stuff worse. So I'm not blaming systems, and I haven't got an agenda against any other specific country. But when is this absolute farce of a show going to come to the end for England? Whether it's a ball 3 yards over the line, whether it's a red card when Beckham kicks out, when he just touched his ankle and would probably have been a yellow for anyone else. We can go tournament and tournament and tournament. When Sol Campbell scores a header and gets disallowed against Portugal, when are people going to wake up and smell the coffee? I watched a game last year. I cannot stand Man City. I can't. I don't like them. Don't like their oil money. I don't like the club. Don't like their fans. Sorry. No.
Don't like the city.
No. Manchester's a fantastic city. And to be fair, Manchester City have got a fantastic history before the 40 years that everyone forgot about. But I watched a game against them versus PSG, funny enough, a French club the other year, and I've never seen such a biased performance. Man City were getting fouled every 2 minutes, like blatant fouls. There should have been yellow cards everywhere. It happens in the Champions League. And someone has to stand up and say, FIFA, I want you to review games that are... I'm being serious. If anyone's watching this now, I want FIFA to review games, because when you have a bad game against an English side, that can happen. It's not because we're English. It's because we're English sometimes that it does happen. Our own mentality. We've got to blame ourselves in a sense that we've made people dislike us this much. But I'm sorry, I'm going to say it on the podcast, and I don't care what anyone else says. I am sick to death of poor reffing decisions causing our fate to be worse than it should be. I'm not blaming them for us going out, but this is not the first performance. I mean, right. I'll put it to you three. Sorry, this is a rant. I'm going to have to rant. I'm sorry. I'll put it to you three now, right? And I just want a yes or no from each one of you. If France had been England in that game and Saka was Mbappe and he got taken out of that, if we go out the other end and score, do they call that back and cancel it for a foul? Yes, they do. They cancel that.
I don't think... I'm going to say no.
Okay, so Kane's challenge, which you probably were going to come on to, and I've ruined the whole thing here, but Kane's challenge, right? That's a foul in any world. Doesn't matter who you support. If anyone tells me that's not a foul, I'm going to... Do you know what? I'm all up for opinions, but if there's anyone that thinks that challenge against Kane was not a foul, I can't accept it. That's one thing. I can't accept it. So we've got two outcomes here. Did they think it wasn't a penalty because it wasn't on the line? Or did they just not think it was a foul? Well, normally they will let you know if VAR thought it wasn't a penalty, because they'll say they said it was outside an area. So therefore, Peter Walton comes on. They said it was outside the area, so therefore it won't be a penalty. He didn't say that. So they haven't given the foul. I've had enough. I've had enough.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Joe,
Who's going to wake up? Tell me who's going to wake up. I know I'm on a rant here, and that's fine. You can put it out. Mark Goldbridge does it every week. Who is going to eventually... I'm not claiming racism. I'm not claiming... What I am claiming is that the English have made a bed that they're now lying in for 60 years. So when does it stop? When? Get me in front of FIFA and I will review games. I will review games in the league every time. Every tournament. We had a ball. Do you know what makes me laugh? I was in a room when Lampard scored that goal against Germany. I was in a room with 8 other people. Oh, did it cross the line? Did it? I said, you lot. I said, if you need a replay to know whether that crossed the line, don't start moaning at me in a minute when you go, oh, that was 40. That was about 3 yards over. I don't need any replay. When?
Do you know what? I think what needs to happen is there has to be consequences for refs, right? So if you have bad games, terrible decisions, there needs to be some kind of penalty. So then actually that makes them do their job. It makes them more accountable, right? And makes them do their job better. Isn't that the Spanish ref that Messi was complaining about, that was actually helping Argentina? He's gone home now, right? So he's been sent home. So there's been a consequence there. So I think that kind of needs to happen. I think it's hard, right? Because actually sometimes referees are blinded by certain players. You've seen in the Premier League, right? Like, if Xhaka goes, I mean, it's warranted. If Xhaka goes near anyone, it's straight away a red card because they know he's aggressive.
Whereas if Saka done it, they'd be like, "Oh, it's Saka."
Exactly. So there's different. There's obviously biases that run through referees, right? But I mean, to your point, Joe, there has to be some kind of redemption. We thought VAR was that because isn't that what it's there for? But clearly, it's not. So I think there needs to be some kind of repercussions. Otherwise, it just gets silly because I think we've talked about refs the most in this whole World Cup, more so than any other, and we've got VAR, so it makes no sense. We haven't moved forward, we've moved backwards.
Yeah, but it's not just I don't mind poor performance. What I'm trying to say is, if you put every England major tournament game out and look at the decisions, they're constantly there. They are constantly there. Yet we play Iran. Maguire's getting pulled like this, and I'm being pulled. What happens? Tell me what happens, even in that early game. But we win 6-2. If we draw 2-2 there, everyone's going mad about it, but it's forgotten. Because what happened? Maguire's top was nearly pulled off his body. Yet they go up the other end. He's hardly got hold of the lad. Penalty.
But I think every team has their biases, right? So like I think England, that might be one of it. Like the Latin America countries, like I don't know how many decisions they will be getting unless they have Messi in it.
Every team does have their bias, but the problem is everyone's biased against England. And I didn't want to have this rant tonight, but it's true. I want to review games. Someone has to start reviewing, but no one's brave enough. Who's going to go up to FIFA and say, "Look, we'll be honest with you, we're not happy with the last 30 years. Please review these big decisions."
Yeah, but I mean,
no one.
No, you know what? I mean, the penalty against Mason Mount. I mean, like if the referee or if VAR turned that away, then you know what, Joe?
The ref weren't going to give it, T. The ref weren't going to give it. It was 3 yards away.
What I
he
mean,
didn't even give that penalty, and I don't think he was waiting for VAR. He didn't want to give the penalty.
I think he was waiting for VAR.
I think he was waiting for VAR as well.
I think he was waiting. Yeah.
I definitely was not happy.
Because it's such. But you have to remember, right? So these, as much as we are fans as well, right? These are big moments that can change a whole game. Like, and actually, I'm not that I'm backing referees. Like, no, I'm not on the committee or anything. But they are human, right? So you have biases, you have all these things. Like he was waiting for VAR to back him up on that decision. Like it definitely was because he even forgot to give him a card. He even forgot to give that's how like emotionally like confused.
But why didn't he check VAR for the Kane challenge and the Saka challenge to go back then? Just answer me that question. Because there isn't an answer.
Yeah, well, it's inconsistent. We know it has. It always is. It always is.
The biggest problem is we always, before VAR, we always had this conversation where it was like, they're human. They can make mistakes. It's understandable, right? You can't see everything. But when you introduce VAR, when you introduce 100 of cameras and whatever else to slow it down and see every little bit of contact the players make, you cannot afford to make decisions that are blatantly wrong. We've seen it in the Premier League. We probably has been happened in other major leagues as well. On top of that, you're seeing it in World Cups, you're seeing it in Euros, you're seeing it in all these different competitions and tournaments and so forth. That VAR cannot be allowed to make wrong decisions. When you have a camera, when you have slowed down and replays, I don't feel that you can make them decisions.
You can make because it's still on an individual. I can make a wrong decision. You can make a wrong decision. Shout, all four of us and everyone that's listening tonight, we can all make wrong decisions. So for me, I haven't got an issue with wrong decisions, although it needs some improvement, and I think other leagues do it better than ourselves. My issue is if the decisions are consistently incorrect and biased against one team, you have to look at it. And I'll give you all a challenge. If you've all got a half hour spare in your life or an hour spare in your life, which you probably haven't, watch the Man City against PSG game, just for an instance. Go and Google the highlights of England's last games that they've been knocked out of every major tournament. Watch them all because they're all fresh in my mind. And come back to me. Because
you know, but also as well, I think two things. When, especially before the game, they always take a kind of established shot or screenshot of the people in VAR. So there's about 5 or 6 people who are watching the screen. So I'm sure that there's probably some of them that say it's a foul, but of course there's probably like a head judge that, well, I don't know, head judge or whatever,
like a head panel member or something, yeah.
You know, X, Y, and Z. And also as well, I think we all forget before the World Cup, FIFA didn't take none of the English VAR assistants because
I'm not surprised based on our performance.
And so, you know, so actually even FIFA knew, like, you know, again, like, you know, the like Premier League was just diabolical.
Yeah, but listen, T.
No, but
yes, it's diabolical, but they've got officials from countries that they're vast.
Yeah, but like, you know what, Joe? You know what? But you know,
do that. It has to be fair.
But we're coming down to pressure moments, and whatever we say about the refereeing standard against France, Harry Kane has now gone into history, like with Chris Waddle and with Stuart Pearce putting the ball over the bar, and that's what he's going to be remembered for.
No, not by me. Not by me.
So, Reece, you did mention that. Paul has come in and said, main question, how did Kane miss the second penalty? I want to touch on Alden, Joe. I want to touch on that a bit more on that. That do you think that it was a mental thing? Because if you want anyone to step up for a penalty, it's Harry Kane, right? He especially in an England shirt. Anyone in that England team, you are asking Harry Kane to step up for it. I
do think it is the occasion. Yeah, I mean, we won't know. I mean, he said himself that he just hit it wrong, but sometimes, like, he practices them. He probably hits 99 out of 100 in that corner. So I think it's just one of them things. I think I don't want to get on this bandwagon of you know, last year it was the lads missed penalties and Kane missed a penalty. I thought we'd done enough in the game to win, not draw, at least get something out of it to win the game. I think the fact we were relying on his penalty, for me, was I was expecting we'd get further on. And I don't like the fact that for me, he won't be remembered blasting that over the top. He's one goal away from England's best striker. He's the best striker we've had since Alan Shearer. And yes, he blasted over the top, but I thought he played okay. Got a couple of goals this tournament. He's England's leading ever tournament goal scorer. I just think it's harsh if you're saying that he's going to be remembered for blasting over the top.
Well, I mean, like, let's be real. Every single player that's missed a penalty for England, from Chris Waddle, Stuart Pearce, from 1990, when they kind of had that redemption in Euro 96, that's what people were talking about.
But you know what that tells me, Tabrice? That tells me that's the type of mentality we breed. Maybe that's why we don't win these big games, because we're still talking about every player that's missed the penalty.
Yeah,
we're still talking about
but like, you know, that's the narrative, because of course when like Rashford and Saka missed, everyone was talking about, again, redemption against Iran, how like they scored goals to exercise the demons from Euro from Euro 2021 or whatever it was. So like, no matter what we say, like, and again, no matter how good Saka is from now until he retires, everyone's going to talk about his penalty miss, no matter what.
Yeah, talk about, but remembered for. But I think they're two different things.
Yeah, no, but like, I like, you know, still think that people will say, "Oh, Saka, yeah, for England. Oh, yeah, he's that guy that missed the penalty." Like, that's what people say. Like, that's what people will actually say.
I know what you're saying, but I'm just a bit over passionate tonight. But I just think
but see, like, how I see it, yeah, it was a pressurized moment of 100%. Like, no matter what people say, again, you know, I had a pundit say, which is ridiculous, saying there should have been a second penalty taker for the second penalty. Like,
No.
that was
that's just stupid. Yeah,
that was absolutely stupid.
Yeah,
absolutely stupid. It's
I
like
wouldn't-
they are really trying to kind of pick little.
The only thing I would say, but it goes against what Kane's done because he quite successfully normally puts it at that height, and then that's the thing. I do prefer a hard and low penalty sometimes because I think it's harder to like obviously blast it over the bar and stuff, but he just likes that height, and you always have the risk how hard he hits the ball as well. He very rarely just strokes it. It's quite a hit. And I think that risk is always there. But I mean, that's it. If it goes in, we're talking about him putting 2 away, aren't we? So
yeah, and I don't know. I don't remember Kane missing a penny like that
Exactly.
before. So this is why I completely agree that's high pressure, because as he was taking that penalty, I was like, firstly, this can put him as all-time goal scorer, right? Secondly, he knows how much time is left. I think if this was earlier in the game,
he scores. I think you're right, Shell.
Slightly different, taking off the pressure slightly, but he knew, because we were all doing the same thing. We were looking at the time going, oh my gosh, if it goes in, we've got this. It'd be like we were doing.
Put your hand up if you knew he missed before he took it, because I did.
I had a feeling, but I had a feeling, but
the second one, I knew.
Sorry, that was my second point. Then the third point was Lloris. He knows him. Like, the first goal went, fair enough, the first one he went in, but again, that's another mind game. Does he go the same? Does he do the same thing? Does he go the same way? Lloris knows him, right? So that's three elements. And for like this, I think actually, as we said, England had played really well. And actually, like, if we'd gone into extra time, we probably could have edged it, to be fair. And that was the real possibility that then you could win it. I just think there was just so much pressure, like even more so than just penalties at the end. I think it was just the added layer of just everything.
Yeah, and also we were on top. I think it was one of them goals that if it goes in, I mean, we'll never know. But for me, we were sort of getting the edge. I'd have fancied us to win it in extra time. We looked like we had more legs left in us than them, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Napa's mum's got a point in terms of like Bellingham. Like that was heartbroken. And actually, to be fair, after that, I would have taken Kane off because Kane's head was gone. Like, after that penalty miss, he was distraught. That man was like, and actually fair play to Bellingham for going up to him, because I mean, we've talked about how brilliant Bellingham is, and even just in interviews, like he is.
Yeah, his interviews are unbelievable.
He's actually just
really well. Yeah,
that's
nice
brilliant.
Guy.
I think with him, like, he's definitely a future captain. But I think after that penalty missed, I mean, I don't know why we're not talking about Gareth Southgate and his decisions, but I would have taken Kane off at that point. Regardless of whether we got another goal going into extra time, his head was completely gone. And I've never seen Kane like that, but obviously he's probably never missed the penalty on that level before. Yeah. But he was completely distraught. Like, he was basically a missing man after that.
And I think the team felt the same, Show. I think the team realised this isn't like the previous tournaments where it's sort of, we'll just stick in there. This one was there for them to win. I feel like they believed.
Yeah, but this is why I was annoyed at Southgate, because after that penalty miss, do what the Netherlands did. Chuck, I don't care. Chuck everyone on, and then actually, to be fair, if we make it to extra time, you can figure it out afterwards. Like, we won't even care. We'll be like, do you know what, Pickford, come and take a penalty. We would not care who took it.
But that's where it would have been nice to have an option like Tony potentially, because he would have been a lump it up, wouldn't he?
Exactly. But just, I think when we missed that penalty, I think it was just bad decisions by Southgate. You should have just chucked. Why bring on Grealish with 2 minutes to go? Like, generally, what was the point of that? That I think for me, that's probably why I didn't feel so upset with the loss, because I saw Gareth Southgate's tactics and I was like, if that's how you're going to, why am I going to be crying? Like, if it was me, I'd have chucked everyone on. I don't care. Like, Callum Wilson, whoever, get on. Because I think you need that burst of energy, because everyone on that pitch, as soon as that penalty went up into the sky,
they went down. Like,
and it came back to England before they did. We literally were like, okay, everyone was upset. Like, get energy back onto the pitch, but he didn't do that, and I was just like, actually, Gareth has just as much killed the game as the penalty miss, I think.
Michelle, moving on to your point about Southgate, should he stay or should he go after this World Cup?
Let me calm down. I think he should stay for the Euros. I'm not sure he's got another World Cup in. I just don't know who would replace him. So I'm not silly. Like, I'm cussing him, but I'm like, there's no one to replace him. So he might need to stay and have a bit of a transitional period. But yeah, I think he's probably not got another World Cup in him. So I just don't think he's got that edge to win anything.
So Bruce?
Same. I think Gareth Southgate has got credit in the bank, and I can't think of anyone else. I mean, if you're going to go down the English route, then of course you're looking at Eddie Howe, Potter, and what is it? That's it, isn't it? Right?
That's about it. English wise.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, I mean, again, exactly what Michelle said. Like, we didn't see really nothing of Callum Wilson. We didn't see nothing of Maddison. Of course, Maddison was injured, so again, we can probably give him the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah.
Grealish only came on because Stones was injured.
Yeah.
So, so again, it just proves that he doesn't really fancy Grealish at all. So it's a, but I mean, again, I think he's still the best man for the job right now. Definitely got a Euros. But again, what's the Euros has done? It's it's only a 2 years. So again, it's not really a huge.
He can transition out during those 2 years, though, innit? Hand over the baton to someone else.
Sam Allardyce.
For me, he should. For me, he should go after this World Cup. For me, I think that he's proved it time and time again that when it comes to the big games, he's not always on it. And if we're talking about what we've just seen against France, we're talking about his poor substitutions later on in the game. If we talk about Italy in the Euros, it was his poor substitutions in the game.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest problem I see with that is he learned with Italy. He learned against Italy that you cannot afford to bring subs on too late. And that's exactly what he done when it came to France. And I feel that overall, I just don't think that Southgate's the man to take it over the line at all. I think he can get us quite far in competitions, but as we've seen, it's his style of play. And I think it's down to the quality of players that we actually have that's allowed us to progress further than what people are giving Southgate credit for. I don't think Southgate.
I do think he has gelled the team, though. I will be. He's made a happy camp. He's built that relationship with the media. I think we have to give him some credit in terms of the relationship.
Yeah, he's done a big rebuild job in terms of
media, fans, everything. I think he's done a lot of like that unity work, which we've all seen in clubs. Like then helps kick forward, right? But that might just be where his limit is, and that might just be it. And then someone else can take us on to win something, but. I do think he's done a lot more than you give him credit for, Billy, I think, personally.
Okay, let me reword it. Let me just say it.
You're wrong, Michelle. I'm joking.
Southgate on the football pitch, in the big games, during them big games, he seems to not put 100% in, but he doesn't make it so we're convincing.
Yeah.
The France game is the game when we look at Croatia in the World Cup or when we look at Italy in the Euros, we went away fuming because A, we could have won it, and B, we could have won it if we actually tried hard enough. Whereas with this France one, I feel that we did push and push and push and kept pushing. Yeah. But again, Southgate coming back to it, he just isn't for me the guy to put us over the line to win a trophy.
I agree.
So, do you think Southgate should stay or should he leave after this tournament?
I think he should go.
Okay.
The reason I think he should go is because it comes on to our next point. I'm going to tie it in with this.
Oh, okay.
Seamless. When I look into the sides, I look at the youth, I look at the talent, I look at the ages of our boys are going to be the next World Cup. You're probably going to have Ramsdale or Pope in goal. I don't think Pickford will make the next World Cup. I don't think he'll make the next Euros unless Gareth stays. If Gareth goes, he will not be England's number one, although I've not faulted him. I think the reason Gareth should go is because I think he has learnt from the Croatia game. He has learnt from the Italian game. and he has been able to allow England to sort of show their natural talent. I think the problem you've got is that Southgate is very rigid in not just the personnel he picks, but the options and formation he plays. And you're going to have Kane, who's 33, 34 the next World Cup, 32, 33-ish. No, 32 on the next Euros. He's already losing a bit of legs. Yes, he's a scorer. But with the players that we've got at our disposal, we have a bit of a catch-22 issue. We do not have any upcoming central strikers at all, unless you're going to start going down the route of Calvert-Lewin and God knows who.
I don't know, but Tony's only, what, 25, 26?
26, Tony.
So if Tony gets a big move, then potentially Tony we could be looking at.
I get what you're saying, and I rate Tony, but international at this level is a hot, and I don't think he'll ever reach them heights. Hopefully I'm wrong. But in terms of talent and goal scoring, there's not anyone coming through. Here's the flip side. I think we can play very similar to Man City without a direct number 9, with creative Saka, Foden, Rashford, or Saka, Foden. We have a lot of attacking, talented players, as well as 2 central midfielders who are the best in the world. You upgrade the keeper. You look for some centre-halves, Tomori being one of them, and have a look for another centre-half. I think right back looks excellent. I would work a lot on Trent. He's world class in his day. If he can defend, he will be your player. Left back's weak. Central midfield should be the best in the world with Rice and Bellingham, in my opinion. And you've got an array of attacking talents. Now, how this links in with Southgate going is I can't see how Southgate can develop a squad to play that style of football, because I think he's very limited in terms of what he can do. So I think it's going to need a manager that is able to play that on the press, possession-based style of football, and who is also able to look at a couple of youngsters to come in and make this side someone that can win cups. So I would leave with my head held high with a fantastic record in major tournaments, and leave with a freshness that you're handing over a team that is still in development. I think if he stays on for the Euros, you're almost 2 years into the inevitable of him leaving. And actually, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think
how long has he got left on his contract? 2 years?
2 years to the Euros. The problem I've got is he's already saying to the media and stuff now, he sort of wants to think about his future. He's not sure. For me, that's his answer. If he was sure, he'd say, do you know what? I'm focused here. I've got a project. Yes, we feel awful about this World Cup, but I think he knows himself. He's tried absolutely everything, Gareth. And I think he's a cracking bloke. And actually, talking about remembering people for missing a penalty, I remember him as being a good, very, very good English manager who repaired a relationship with pretty much the whole country and the fans, and still has. But his time's up. Who I'd have to replace him, if I could pick anyone in the world, it would be Pep. But realistically, who I would get is I would potentially have Conte as the England manager.
Wow.
Bit ludicrous, I know. But he don't mind keeping the ball. A little bit defensive, but I think he'll be pushed. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is we are not going to be able to rely on Kane in 4 years. There's no central striker coming up, so we need to work a possession-based style of front three with no real number 10, number 9, sorry. And that's going to be tricky and not something I believe Gareth is going to be able to do. Sorry for the long answer.
You were saying, Joe, that about Kane and stuff. Robert's come in with a comment. Do you think Kane should be captain as it makes it hard to be subbed off? I've said this with Southgate and...
That's a really good point, yeah, for strikers.
I think that Kane being I hate Kane being on the pitch, if I'm honest. I'll say it how it is. I think the fact that he runs back, we know my point on it already. But for him to be captain as well, I think it's ludicrous. I don't see why you shouldn't have a keeper or someone in your back line or at a push a midfielder as your captain. Yes, it's all about lifting the spirit of the team and that, but you have to have someone commanding and talking the entire game, whether they're captain or not. My vote for captain instead of Kane would have to be Pickford, or it would have to be potentially Rice, because Rice is that future of, he's very young, he's still got a lot left, and what he offers in that midfield three, I think, yeah. So
I would give it to Rice or Bellingham. I'd say Bellingham. Do you know what I'm most impressed by? It's not just Bellingham's performance, like Shao said, how he comes across, how he speaks to the media, the head that he's got on his shoulders in terms of how he says things, the meaning behind it. He's a very, very good lad. And actually, can he handle that responsibility now? No, I think Rice is probably a little bit more developed than him in experience. But you've got two captains lined up there. And I think it's a fantastic question by Rob, because you do have that issue sometimes of having a striker as captain. It's almost like they're untouchable. And that's where I would agree with you, Bill. But this is the problem. It goes back to my point. We've got no other central striker which is good enough at this level. You can say Tony, you can say other players, Abrahams and Wilsons, but no one is this level. And I think, in fairness to Gareth, he knows that. Most football people know that. And it's led him into maybe that's what's a bit of our downfall at the moment.
Joe,
we look at Kane for scoring goals, and that's it.
If I ask you a quick question, yes or no answer, super simple. If Kane wasn't captain, would Wilson be seen more game time over this World Cup?
Not with Gareth.
Do you think Kane would still be getting rinsed dry?
100%, because I believe the level that Kane is he still levels above anyone else we've got, and we've got a problem of breeding strikers in this country currently.
He would be. I just think he wouldn't be playing full games though. I think he
might come off a little bit earlier, but I don't think with Gareth, bear in mind. I sort of agree with your point, but with Gareth, I think you just play him until he's 69. You know what? At 69, he'll probably still be our best striker. Do any of you three honestly feel? I'm not saying strikers that could be good enough. Do any of you three think there's a striker that is good enough for this top tier international level that's English? Because when
you say good enough, do you mean as good as Kane, or as good enough for the side to be able to provide goals as a striker should be?
No, as good as Kane, that level. I'm talking level.
I think when you're looking, it's very difficult. When you look at Kane, you look at Haaland, you look at Benzema, you look at Lewandowski, you look at. There's only a handful of strikers in the world that are at the level. I wouldn't even put Kane as that. I think he's slightly below now anyway, getting a bit older. And I just don't like him anyway. Simple.
But you see that's the issue. I think as a central striker, if whoever's manager anyway at the time, whoever's like the key figure in like that team, it's very unlikely anyone's going to displace them unless there's an injury or if they retire. Because of course it happened with Rooney. Because I'm sure Kane was around when Rooney was still in his palm, and Kane didn't really have a look in.
Yeah.
And again, we're looking. Yeah, I mean, you are absolutely true. You're right now. Like when Kane retires, we're looking at maybe Tony, Wilson, also around the same age going. There's like no other up and coming central striker that I could say this is the person that's going to take his place, which is worrying.
I think you say it's very easy for a young player to make an impression in a season. So if you look at Manchester United, you look at how Lingard broke on the scene, or Rashford, it was very quick and like, oh, these young up and coming players are coming through, they're getting all that. So it's very easy to say you don't see any strikers coming up yet. But potentially we're looking at next season, there might be some absolute wonder kid who comes through and plays a couple of games.
Bill, you're talking, I know what you're saying, but you're talking about Lingard and stuff as an example. They had their chance. They've not been consistent and they've not hit the levels. Even them guys that have come through are not good enough. So to have someone I know what you're saying. It could happen, but even if it does happen quickly, they're going to be very young and inexperienced. I think for me, you're looking at playing a front three. Someone needs to change the formation.
I agree with you in the sense that we could be looking at Man City in the sense of playing maybe a centre forward or maybe not that straight out number 9 that we're looking for because of the attacking outlets we've got going forward with the likes of Foden, Saka, even Sterling. I know he's getting on, what's he, 29, 28, maybe even 30 now. So we're looking at all these attacking players that we do have. None of them are that standout number 9. If we're looking, my best potential could be Tony in the sense that he's been linked and he could get a move to a bigger club. And if doing that, it could offer him a lot more goals that we could be looking at from Tony. We could be looking at a lot more just overall presence from Tony in a game. And when you take him out of a Brentford side and potentially put him in a Chelsea side, well, not Chelsea because we're useless with strikers, but if we put him in a side that does prey off of strikers or a big, maybe the top 6 clubs that could use Tony, I feel that Tony could be on that level. He's not.
His technical ability is just not at that level. I mean, I've watched him in real life and I've watched him progress over the years as well. I know quite a bit about Ivan Toney, and he's a really good player. I actually predicted him to do great things in the Championship. Jill will probably know Ivan Toney as well. She's probably seen him down at Fleetwood a couple of times. Yes, he's good, but he's just don't think he's going to beat you that level.
Yeah, honestly,
you've got to bear in mind by the next World Cup he's 30, and he's already 26 and got no international experience.
Yeah. But that's the issue with Southgate not being planned, not being smart enough to plan it all out. You look at the likes of Tomori, he's 24, 23. He's got easily another 2 World Cups in him, right? And another 2 Euros on top of that, maybe even a third going a bit older. But when you look at like Tomori, for instance, instead we've got Harry Maguire and Stones who are getting on a bit now. Maguire's what, 28, 29? So he's on his last few legs for the World Cup. Why not bring Tomori in now? Maybe not play him every game. Still take Maguire and still take Stones, but give Tomori some play time, maybe even Wilson as well. So for the next World Cup, we can go, right, these centre-backs are getting on a bit now. They're getting a bit old. I'm not sure about them. We have got Tomori. He's got international games now because we played him in the World Cup and the Euros, and he's still young enough to play it. That's why I criticise Southgate as well, because he's not prepared enough. He's got his favourites. And like you said, he'll play until they're 69 years of age. Like he just hasn't. I don't think he's got a plan for the future, and I think he just goes with what he knows and hopes for the best.
I think if he had a plan for the future, his statements as he's currently putting out would not be as they are.
No,
because surely they'd be more optimistic in a sense of, this is along what I want to do. I wanted to win this World Cup. He's not really saying anything like this, and I think that answers his own question. But I think he's been a great servant for England, and in my lifetime, probably up there with the best managers, to be honest, in terms of results. Yeah. It's hard to say because it's still like we've missed so many opportunities, but
yeah,
it is. On a lighter note from Jill, thoughts on Dave the Cat. I think we need a lighter note. Do you know what? You were even going to get this version of me tonight, or you were going to have me crying into a pillow. I'm sorry. I've pretty much done the same, but just verbally. So thoughts on Dave the Cat being brought home. He's in isolation at the moment. I think it's perfect. Do you know what I think is a really good story actually, and from someone that never used to. I never used to be an animal person, and I always used to think when people used to talk about their dogs and cats like family, I used to think. But then I got Merlin, and it's crazy. It's proof like you love them like family, and that little cat, has gone from the streets of Qatar to now being like an England squad mascot. What a life he's going to have. Oh, she. I think. Oh, it is he. There's not many she's called Dave, is there? But yeah, I think it's a really good story. I think a lot of people won't be too fussed about it, but
I've never heard of it. Genuinely,
you not heard about Dave the Cat?
No,
he's been like mixing around the England players.
Yeah, they're literally all having pictures of him, like part of the team.
When Shao went there to watch the USA game,
slept to my bed.
He jumped in Shao's hotel.
Dave is a lucky man.
He was.
I think it's nice, but I'd actually. This is going to sound a bit serious, but who's going to have him? Because I think if they bring that cat home just as a bloody trophy and actually no one's looking after him, I actually think it's a disgraceful story. So I want to know who's looking after Dave.
I reckon he's got the pick of all the houses.
I reckon no, you can't do that. He has to have a house. They have to have a home. I think he's going to. I think he's going to live with Kyle Walker.
I think it's John Stones.
Do you reckon?
I thought it might be Foden, but
no.
No. Why? What's wrong with Foden?
He's too young. He can't look after himself.
Fair.
Yeah, Johnny might have him because he's from Barnsley. They're quite comforting people, aren't they?
Actually, Michelle, who would let you want to be? I don't know if you've got Michelle's answer regarding
what
Kane.
for who? What about Kane being captain, or who do I want to be captain?
Both.
So Kane captain. I've never been a fan of Kane being captain, just because his character doesn't scream leader to me. And I think that's part of not part of the reason why. This is why I love Hendo so much.
Yeah,
he does, which is annoying because he does the job that a captain does, even though he's not a captain, which makes me love him even more.
Did you see my point about Bellingham, Shell?
Yeah, Bellingham.
Like his way is
Bellingham is like
he's on a level with Henderson.
He is like future, and this is why they had this. He's kind of romance young, but like that's why they had that connection, because they both understood the.
I agree.
You know, look at the team, the dynamic in terms of like you putting your body on a line, the things you need to do, and just being emotionally intelligent as well.
Yeah,
I personally think I would have said, to be fair with Kane, I get why he is captain. I'm not going to lie, he is our pin-up. I mean, it's about money as well. Let's not forget, guys. Like, there's a reason why, like, Messi, Ronaldo, all the conversations around certain players, because it is about money and about actually attention, fans, all that kind of stuff. And that's the reason why Kane is captain. Because it's not just Southgate loves him, even for Spurs. Like, and if you watch the All or Nothing documentary, Spurs, Kane probably just said "come on" about 500 times, but he never said anything else. Like I never heard any. Literally, that's all I heard, and then that was it. Cut. But then I think when you're in like the trenches like England were on Saturday, you needed something from a captain, and I just think if Kane was a true and the right captain, I don't know whether mentality change could happen. I don't know. I just don't.
To be fair, when I was younger,
it's not in him to be shouting, leading. Like, he leads by like physical examples sometimes. Like, sometimes you'll see him like pressing, like, but even then he's still quiet when he does that as well. Like, he's still quite nice about it. So I think for me, I know I'm being a bit biased, but I think Ramsdale would be an amazing captain.
Yeah,
he's not even in the England squad. Like, he's just.
He will be. He will be, though. Let's not.
I said at the beginning of this, he will be, in my opinion, England's future number one.
Yeah, he definitely will be.
I think this will be Pickford's last tournament, just because his club form probably isn't going to get any better. And I think as a keeper, he's hit the heights and he's done it pretty well. But I think it's time for a change. He's a decent keeper, Pickford, not put a foot wrong. But I just think when you're looking at leaders and to upgrade the team, not just from a technical perspective, but when you look at what Ramsdale has done this year in terms of I'm not even talking performance. I'm talking turning around, winding up opposite fans,
and even the decisions we talk about referees, like even that level, you need someone to just go, come on, guys, like let's like even just like play. Because I used to play obviously basketball and football, so like you'd be like the referees are being like out of order, so like, you need to play like. It's another level of thinking, isn't it? In terms of like, actually, everyone's against us. Let's all pull through. You need that element of like push. And I think Ramsdale, because he's got that kind of personality where he thrives off like people calling him names, shouting at him. I think that's another element that you probably need. And Bellingham, as T said earlier, like you know, in terms of the respect, like he was bossing it. He just didn't care that he was up against France. Like, this is one of his, like, he's probably played the most minutes in the major tournament. He didn't show that kind of nervousness. I think with that element as well, like, he could be quite a good captain. I think it's that extra element that we need on the pitch. That
and also I think different captains suit different sides. I'm thinking when I've played football, over the years, I've had some captains that are really, really vocal, but actually they're just gobby. You don't back them at all. They think they're the best player in the team. They've never got, and actually you think, oh, shut up. And then I've worked with some captains that are sort of middle. I've worked with captains that are just really nice. I'd probably say that's as bad as having one that's constant. Then I've worked with them sort of middle captains that they don't really have to be harsh. They're just leaders.
Yeah.
And he's really, really young, so it could be an issue. But when I hear Bellingham speak, he's got that about him.
To be fair, Joe and Michelle, I don't know if you two have watched it. I haven't, but Tabrice has been talking about it. No sponsorships, unfortunately, by Netflix and the show that they are doing. But Tabrice, I think you're probably you've obviously been you can talk more on the captains series that you were watching and what you think about who should be captain and stuff.
A role of a captain is someone that will sacrifice themselves on and off the pitch, someone that the team respects, someone that the manager can rely on, and again, without talking too much about the captain's documentary, with the different countries, there's different characteristics that every captain has, from Thiago Silva to Modric to Blake, the Jamaican goalkeeper captain, to I think it's the Lebanon captain as well. There's just so many different characters, and I think with what Joe was saying in terms of someone that's gobby, I think that's kind of like Henderson. Henderson is always shouting, and you think, oh, well, I'm better than Henderson, but like he's talking sense. Like I totally don't understand what he's saying. But someone like Thiago Silva probably doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like he's not really a shouter, but he oozes quality, he oozes class. And literally sometimes that can go throughout the whole team.
The example I'd give T is that I think Steven Gerrard is one of the best captains I've ever known in my lifetime for club, but for country, I don't think he was very good at all, because his style of management didn't suit that team at the time. What I'm saying is, arguably, your captain should be respected regardless, but that doesn't always happen. I think it depends the sort of vibe and chemistry the team's got. I don't think one fit is right for all, if that makes sense. Like you're saying, like you've got Modric's style and other styles. I think you'd need to find the right style for England. And I don't think Kane is that, no.
And I think going back to what Gareth Southgate's done, he has literally created an atmosphere where everyone is allowed to speak. Everyone can actually mingle with each other without, even after the game, win, lose, or draw, you could see everyone talking to each other. And if
and all on Man United tables and Chelsea tables.
Yeah,
he's got rid of that, hasn't he?
Rashford's talking to Grealish. I'm like, there's a kind of genuine bond there. Bond, which again, I just hope if Gareth Southgate doesn't decide to continue, whoever comes in will literally kind of now hopefully catapult that type of way into a kind of dipness, into a different atmosphere, and hey, like, who knows? Euros in Germany, England could win it. World Cup in the States and Canada and Mexico, I believe. Again, exactly what Billy was saying. Like, we could be talking about like a 9-10-year-old kid right now saying who's going to be the next England striker, and literally he could be 10, 11 right now, and then in the next 8 to 10 years, this could be like the guy. So it's all positive for me. It's all positive.
That could be me. I'll be like 44.
Right, guys, we're going to leave it there for today. We have run over a little bit more than what I'd like, but that's fine because Joe has loved his rants today.
Probably half hour more talking like normal.
But we've all had what we've had to say. So cheers, guys, for coming on, and cheers for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn the notification bell on so you know when we do post again. But it's been a pleasure as always. And we'll see you next time. All right.
Thanks
Cheers,
for
guys.
joining
Take care.
all.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Bye.